Hello, hello, my financially responsible, emotionally traumatized, permanently frugal friends. I'm your host, the person who still checks their bank account before buying a $5 coffee, even though I absolutely know it's in there. You know, the kind of neurotices we all inherited from being broke in our 20s, or 30s, or, let's be honest, until like last Tuesday. But today, we're tackling the greatest plot twist in personal finance. You hit age 60, you're finally financially secure, and the experts are now telling you, with a straight face, to stop saving. Yes. Stop saving. Spend money. Enjoy life. Apparently that's allowed now. I know, shocking. Take a moment if you need to lie down.
All right, so let's dive right into this with a quote that just perfectly captures the whole tragic comedy we're exploring today, and it comes straight from the brilliant mind of Charlie Munger. I mean, this one sentence lays out the entire paradox, doesn't it? You spend the first half of your life desperately trying to build this nest egg, only to spend the second half too terrified to even touch it. It's like you spent your whole life winning this incredibly hard game, but then you forgot the most important part, actually collecting the prize.
So why? Why does this happen? Why do these super disciplined, super intelligent people who've totally won the financial game continue to act like raccoons hoarding nuts for an apocalypse that's just never going to come? Well, the argument is, it's not about logic. It's not about your spreadsheets. It's all psychology. It's about a deep, deep-seated fear that's put on a nice, respectable suit and now calls itself prudence. But what's really going on under the surface? Well, that's a whole different animal.
And there's actually a term for this phenomenon, emotional inertia. It's kind of a fancy academic way of saying your brain is stuck running old, outdated software, right? The anxiety you felt at 30 when a missed paycheck was a real crisis is somehow still at the wheel of your financial decisions at 65, even though you've got a fully funded retirement. The fear is still driving, like some kind of zombie pilot from your past anxieties.
In this slide, wow, it just lays it out so clearly, right? The threats you faced when you were young were tangible, they were immediate, they were very, very real. But for a financially secure retiree, those threats, they've been replaced by, well, by phantoms. These vague catastrophes, these non-specific just-in-case scenarios that honestly exist mostly in our imagination. The fear of spending too much becomes a much bigger, scarier threat than the actual reality of living too little.
So the crucial takeaway here is that this isn't a rational plan. Not at all. It's a reflex. Munger points to a few key drivers. First, there's just the fear of letting go of the very habits that made you successful in the first place. Then, there's this trap of thinking that being extremely cautious is the same thing as being smart. A lot of people also get this feeling that denying themselves things is some kind of moral virtue, like it's a sign of good character. And then, you've just got the sheer brute force of momentum. I mean, after 4 decades of doing one thing, stopping just feels wrong, even dangerous.
And this whole mindset, this emotional inertia, it doesn't just sit quietly in your bank account. No, it actively starts to shrink your world. It's described as building a prison out of your own caution, where the very habits that once protected you are now the bars that confine you. They steal your comfort, your joy, and sometimes even your basic dignity in your final years. Okay, so to really understand just how irrational this can get, let's look at a story from the source material. The person at the center of this story had a net worth well into the 7 figures. I want you to keep that number, 7 figures, in your head as we go to the next slide. This man, with more money than he could possibly spend in his lifetime, chose to sit and sweat through a brutal summer because he was worried about his electric bill. This isn't discipline. It's what the source calls maladaptive behavior. He wasn't saving money for a purpose, he was hoarding comfort from himself, sacrificing his present well-being for a future financial problem he would absolutely never have.
And here's another just heartbreaking example. A woman in her 80s, again, totally financially secure, wouldn't buy new glasses because of the cost. I mean, can you imagine? She was literally living in a blurry world. And when her family finally just bought them for her, her reaction says it all. She had actually forgotten what clarity felt like. This is exactly what we mean when we say this kind of hoarding doesn't just steal money, it steals the actual quality of your life.
And you know, it doesn't happen all at once. It's a slippery slope. It starts small, right? You ignore little comforts like turning on the AC or buying those new glasses. Then you get used to it. Inconvenience becomes your new normal. And pretty soon, you're rejecting bigger things, travel, new hobbies, going out with friends, all because they cost money. And you end up on that final tragic step, living a life of self-imposed poverty only to die with a fortune sitting in the bank.
And this quote from Munger, it's just the perfect, darkly funny summary of this whole section. At the end of it all, nobody gets an award for dying with the most unspent money. The scoreboard that you used for your entire life, accumulation, it suddenly becomes totally irrelevant. And that is a powerful idea to just sit with for a moment. Quick break. If you're listening to this right now while wearing sweatpants from 1998 because they still work, please consider hitting subscribe. Leave a review too, preferably one you don't overthink for 3 days, like whether you can afford a new toaster. Your support keeps the podcast running, keeps me caffeinated, and helps me convince more lovely, financially secure people to stop living like medieval peasants.
Okay, we've diagnosed the problem. We see it. Now let's talk about the solution. The core argument here is that after age 60, you need a radical, fundamental shift in your thinking. The entire purpose of your money changes, and what makes a good investment is no longer about stocks or bonds. It's about something far more valuable and something that's depreciating much, much faster: your life.
This slide just lays out that evolution perfectly. Think about it. In your 20s, your money's for buying opportunity, education, a down payment, a career change. But by your 60s, its highest and best use is buying ease and comfort. By your 80s, it's about buying support and dignity. If you're still trying to use your money like you're 20, you're solving a problem that you just don't have anymore.
So what does this new investment portfolio even look like? Well, it's not about financial instruments, it's about life instruments. You invest in things that remove those small daily frictions that just wear you down. You spend money to prevent the most predictable dangers of getting older, like falling off a ladder or cleaning the gutters. You buy back your precious time by paying for convenience. And maybe most importantly, you invest in things that protect your independence. Believe me, these are the highest yield investments you can possibly make at this stage.
And look, there is an urgent timeline here. Munger calls this the decline of optionality. The things your money can buy you at 65, like that trip to Italy or learning a new skill or active hobbies, might be physically impossible at 75. And by 85, your money is largely for maintenance and support, not for new adventures. Waiting to spend is a losing game because that window to actually enjoy what the money can buy is constantly closing. So this brings us to our final and honestly our most powerful point. If you spent your entire life playing a game by one set of rules, it is incredibly hard to accept that those rules have changed. But to live well in your later years, you absolutely have to redefine what it means to win the financial game. It's no longer about having the highest score when the clock runs out.
So let's ask the most critical question. After decades of worrying about market crashes and inflation and outliving your savings, what is the actual most probable risk that you face right now?
And here it is. This is the ultimate mindset shift. The perceived risk, the one that your fear has been screaming about for 40 years, is running out of money. But the real risk, the statistical risk, the far more tragic risk for a financially secure person, is running out of life before you run out of money. You've spent your entire life guarding against one outcome, only to be completely blindsided by the other, much more certain one.
So here's the gut check. Here is the simple, undeniable metric. If your brokerage account is going up, but your ability to enjoy a walk, or to see clearly, or to sleep comfortably is going down, your resource allocation is fundamentally broken. You are starving the asset that matters most, which is your life, to feed the asset that now matters the least. And we'll end this analysis with this final, incredibly blunt assessment from Munger. This isn't a sign of success. It's a sign of a massive miscalculation. You won the game, sure, but you misplayed the endgame so badly that you left the entire prize sitting on the table. It is a powerful and maybe a little provocative thought to end on. So what did we learn today? That emotional habits are stubborn, that money trauma ages like yogurt, not wine, and that if you've made it past 60 with a solid nest egg, maybe it's time to spend a little on yourself. Upgrade your life, buy the good slippers, get the fancy sushi, fly business class once so your knees don't file a lawsuit. Huge cosmic level thanks to our producer FireflyHaku, who would absolutely make a terrible financial advisor because he'd just tell everyone, buy the hot spring pass and live your best life. Thank you for joining today's episode. Stay smart, stay sassy, and for the love of your remaining years, spend the money. See you next time on the Deep Dive Podcast.